All right, Ramin Asgard is a former U.S. diplomat and senior advisor to General David Petraeus and General GEN Mattis. He joins us now live from London. Really appreciate you coming on for our special coverage of the Erdogan and Trump summit happening here in Washington. When it comes to America's reduced involvement in Syria, Turkey's operation on the border, particularly joint patrols with Russia in the fight against Daesh, where do you see America's foreign policy right now in the region?
Well, thank you very much. The Turkish incursion to restore stability, peace in northern Syria, it's something that supports, in broad strokes, American policy in the region, which is stabilizing Syria. The Russians and the Turks have essentially managed to bring stability into northern Syria, which was a goal of the United States for quite a long time. So President Trump has achieved a goal, which was stabilizing Syria, reducing the U.S. footprint somewhat, and through some deft diplomacy with Turkey and to a certain extent indirectly Russia, has achieved the strategic goal of stabilizing northern Syria. So right now, you can't classify it as anything other than, positive development.
Where do you see American involvement or U.S. involvement going forward right now in Syria, and that the role that they're playing? We heard President Trump repeatedly saying that we're keeping the oil in that brief press conference that he had with the Turkish president.
Yes, I mean that statement. I think if you had to interpret that through kind of a prism of what's realistic, I think the idea is to secure the strategic resources so they don't fall into the hands of someone who would use them for negative ends, like Daesh had done, like ISIS had done. And I think the American role will be a little bit more offshore. And Turkey is a close and trusted member of NATO. So, in a sense, if the relationship with Turkey is solidified, you have a NATO member acting to secure a very unstable region, which is both economically beneficial, based on the way that President Trump views foreign policy, and it's also an alliance effort, which doesn't mean the United States is going to stay out of it. But if a neighboring country can bring stability, that's an efficient and tactically smart use of resources. So I think the United States is going to keep a close eye on things, but not necessarily jump in at the sign of anything happening that might be untoward in northern Syria.
Raymond, we can expect a number of things to come out of this meeting between President Trump and President Erdogan. We will have a press conference from the two leaders not too long from now. There's a lot of items on the agenda: the repatriation of Daesh fighters, Turkey's purchase of the S-400, America's support for the YPG, which has continued to be a bone of contention between the two countries. What do you think is the most critical component to come out of this meeting? Is it the S-400s?
That's a very astute way to formulate it. Turkey is a NATO ally. President Trump, I think, understands that despite some differences we might have with Turkey, alienating Turkey and sending them into the orbit of Russia and indirectly Iran is certainly not a strategic benefit outcome for the United States. So while these issues are difficult, I mean, you're talking about major weapon systems and interoperability in NATO, S-400 versus Patriot, you're talking about F-35s versus Russian fighter aircraft, you're talking about strategic doctrine, which is different. And the best way to really address that is the way that's happening right now, which is direct diplomacy. These are sensitive issues. These should not be worked through the media necessarily, although the media coverage that TRT is doing is excellent. It has to be done between friends raising tough points and coming up with a solution that makes sense, that's practical and can be implemented. I do think the S-400 is a game changer, and I do think that hopefully something comes out of this where Turkey stays as a close ally within NATO and stays in the strategic relationship with the United States going forward. I think that would be an outcome that both presidents support. I think it just has to be done in a strategically intelligent way and in a direct way that takes all of the equities that that Turkey has, the United States has, into consideration, and lets the outcome be something that both countries can live with.
Well, who could disagree with that? Ramin Asgard out of London, really appreciate you being with us. Thanks for that.